5 o'clock, especially during the month of January with all this wonderful, glorious football on the weekend in the form this weekend of the AFC and NFC championship games. Both be heard here on KTIK Sports Radio, The Ticket. But the best part is us talking to former NFL head coach, longtime coach, Boise State, Dirk Koetter, joining us, and Kelly and the crew from Timberstone, Prater. They're going to go ahead and donate $1,000 to the Horseshoe Collective for Boise State football players on behalf of Dirk Koetter, now on this show.
Yeah, thanks to Kelly. The overall haul, $5,000. We're making Dirk Koetter work 5 straight Fridays. Appreciate his time. Appreciate the Horseshoe Collective and Joe over there for helping us put this together. Kelly at Timberstone. We're going to come out and play some golf out there this summer, but in the meantime, let's raise $5,000 and take care of some NFL business.
And Coach Koetter, welcome to the show, man. You must love the championship Sunday, huh? Pretty good games.
Absolutely. When you think about it, it's kind of sad because we're getting down to the end. Not a whole lot of football Sundays left.
Yeah.
Two left, and then football's done for a while. So let's enjoy this one because I think we're going to have 2 great games.
Now, I'm going to start with the NFC, Coach Koetter, and we'll get to the AFC. But, I mean, you have such a great background for this segment because of your relationship with a lot of these guys. You were Dan Quinn's offensive coordinator the last time he was a head coach with the Atlanta Falcons. Now he gets another job this year. He's still playing with the Commanders and NFC Championship game. This team, the job he has done, you know him so well. When you watch the Commanders, do you see kind of a lot of Dan Quinn, obviously stuff that worked with Atlanta, pouring out into Washington? What's your takeaway from what you're seeing of your buddy?
Yeah, there's some great articles out there on the things that Dan Quinn did in his time away to, he really took a deep dive into himself and how he could do better the next time around. And Dan is one of the most positive, glass half full guys you're ever going to come around. Players love playing with him, and that goes way back to his days as the D coordinator for the Seahawks, for your boy Pete Carroll and the Legion of Boom up in Seattle. But, I think the one thing that Dan has changed the most on is this whole deal on he is not even blinking on these 4th downs. I mean, they are not – it's like they don't even have a punter or a kicker. They're going for it every 4th down. And he's become like the king of analytics because those analytics books are telling you to go for it all the time. And Dan's doing it, and it's been paying off.
Dirk Koetter, our NFL playoff correspondent. Thanks to Kelly, Timberstone Golf Course, the Horseshoe Collective. $1,000 is being raised today, $5,000 total over 5 weeks. There's a follow-up to the Dan Quinn one. Obviously, the Dan Quinn, Kellen Moore connection from Dallas. You know both these guys very well. Although I'm not sure. Have you ever met Kellen Moore personally? Do you know him personally?
I don't know Kellen well at all. We have met, but I do not know him very well. Obviously, we have the Boise State connection, and I'm rooting for him. And, he and Dan him and Dan are tight from their Cowboys days. But no, I don't really know Kellen that well.
So from your perspective then, from the professional coaching perspective, who has the advantage here? I would imagine they both have the way they're going to play off of each other. They're both going to have some positives. They're both going to have some negatives. This is a chess match between 2 chess masters, isn't it?
I think it is. I think the one thing that Kellen is doing a really good job of, and, this won't be popular when I say it, but Kellen is playing to the strengths of his team. Kellen's getting criticized a lot about their passing game right now, but Kellen's got the best running back in the league and maybe the best O-line in the league, and he's leaning hard on that run game. They just haven't looked very good in their pass game, but they haven't needed it to win. And, we all know that Kellen, if he had his way, he'd be out there throwing it all over the yard. Dan, on the other hand, Dan Quinn is a defensive guru, but he's kind of turned the defense over to his coordinator, Joe Witt Jr., who I also coached with at the Falcons. And Joe Witt Jr. has done a good job of taking this Washington defense. They are probably, of the units remaining in the playoffs, the Commanders' defense statistically is probably the weakest unit left. But they've been playing clean football lately.
You know, it's funny you bring up the Kellen and the ways being criticized and the ways using Saquon Barkley. I almost thought you were talking about you and Boise State this past season. A lot of similarities there. Why can't you pass better? Well, because I got the best running back in the entire country, for crying out loud. Do you notice any similarities between you and Kellen and calling plays for Ashton Genty and Saquon Barkley this current football season?
Well, earlier today when I was thinking about this segment, I was thinking about bringing it up that way, but then I'm glad you brought it up because I'm going to say that Kellen is playing it smart by playing to the strengths of his team. He's got the best running back in the league, best O-line in the league, and he's got a running quarterback. Now, he does have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith sitting out there and Goddard at tight end. He's got weapons on the outside. Sometimes a coordinator is calling plays to protect his quarterback. And I think that Hurts is maybe a little more beat up than they're letting on. I think he's a tough guy and an awesome competitor, but I think he's maybe a little bit more beat up. And I think Kellen is doing what he has to do to protect his quarterback and play to his strengths.
I think you're spot on with that, Coach Koetter, and I'll take it a step forward on the NFC Championship game. I mean, it was made known today, reported that Jalen Hurts is going to play and everything, but it's despite an MCL strain. I mean, that's a legit, not an injury, but certainly an owie. It hurts. When you've game planned, when you're quarterback, and you're not going to sit him because you need to win, but when he's not 100%, how much are you willing to change your game plan or do something differently, knowing, like maybe Kellen is, my quarterback isn't 100%. What do you do other than just give the ball to the running back, Coach?
Yeah, well, a couple things on that. One, this is the NFC Championship, all right? It's not like it's week 2 in the season. You do something drastically different if it was week 2 and you had 15 more weeks to go. The winner of this game goes to the Super Bowl. So, and you have an extra week. You got 2 weeks after this game to the Super Bowl. So you can bet that the Commanders are going to do everything in their power to stop Saquon Barkley. And they're going to say, if Hurts beats him running the ball or throwing the ball, then they're going to tip their hat to him. So I'm going to bet that Kellen tries not to run Hurts too much, but in critical moments, they're still going to run him. You're still going to see the tush push when it's less than 1 yard to go or down on the goal line. And just like last week, Hurts had that 39-yard run on the quarterback counter, and I'm sure we're going to see that play or something similar where they fake it to Barkley and pull the lineman and run Hurts behind him at some point.
Dirk Koetter, NFL playoffs, 2 games on Sunday, 9 hours of consecutive live coverage right here on KTIK. All right, one more question for me about the NFC. You know, we all heard the stories about Jaden Daniels trying to become the first rookie quarterback, Super Bowl title, all that stuff. When you see Jaden Daniels play, what do you see?
I see a guy that is playing fantastic right now. He's not turning it over. I mean, he's their leading rusher. I mean, they're predicting they have 2 other running backs, Robinson and Eckert, that split time. And I think they're predicting their rushing yardage at both of them at under 35 yards. And they're predicting Jaden Daniels, I think his over-under is like 56 yards.
Wow.
This guy is playing fantastic football. And you go back to clear back when he was at Arizona State, then he transfers to LSU. This guy's been on a roll. He's not turning it over. He's making the right plays at the right time. Everybody keeps saying a rookie can't do this, but he keeps proving them wrong. They're winning close games, a ton of one-score wins. The Commanders actually have the longest win streak of the 4 teams left. They've won 7 in a row, and there's something to that momentum. This guy is playing great right now.
Dirk Koetter coached in an NFC Championship game 2012, to be exact, when the Atlanta Falcons were the 1 seed. They won a franchise record 13 games that year. Big part of the reason there is Coach Koetter. Coach, I'm sure that you heard Dan Quinn talk often about Bobby Wagner, having coached him before in Seattle. Now he gets Wags back, still had stuff in the tank, obviously, and you're seeing what you're seeing with Washington. Defensively, and you said it, Dan Quinn's a guru. How key is it Or I'm going to guess that they would not be in this position right now had Dan Quinn not called the 36-year-old linebacker and said, "Hey, buddy, I know I got one more year out of you," right?
Yeah, that's crazy because Bobby Wagner's had an unbelievable career. And, he's their green dot, which means he's the quarterback of the defense. He's the guy that Joe Witt Jr. is talking to in between plays, giving him reminders. Hey, here's the tendency on this down and distance and this situation. Expect run, expect pass, expect play action. And then Wagner, you watch him in the game. He's the one that's doing all the talking on the field. He's telling everybody else what to do. He's a leader. And Dan Quinn really values player leadership. And I'm sure that's why he brought Wagner in. And Wagner hasn't disappointed. A lot of times when you bring those older veterans in, they end up playing about 3 games and then getting hurt. But Wagner's been really consistent this year.
All right, Dirk Koetter, let's switch over to the afternoon game. Buffalo at Kansas City, 4:30, CBS, KTIK, the ticket. You can get it all over the place. Andy Reid, we got to start right there. But here's what I'm not sure we've ever asked you before. Andy Reid is always praised about his leadership style. Where did that come from? I mean, I guess my specific question is, who are Andy Reid's mentors? And I'm not talking about X's and O's, but who built this man in terms of his personality and the way he conducts himself as a football coach?
Well, I think his mentors are Mike Holmgren and Lavelle Edwards at BYU. Andy was a junior college transfer out of Glendale Junior College in California, played for Lavelle Edwards at BYU, speaks so highly of Lavelle. And then when he broke into the NFL, it was under Mike Holmgren, who he was also coached by at BYU before Holmgren went to the NFL. Those are his football mentors. But Andy's his own man from a personality standpoint. Andy's got a quick wit, a great sense of humor. You can see how the players love playing for him. Andy's demanding, but yet he's a great communicator. And, he lets those players express their own individuality on the field. Now, it helps that he's got, maybe the best quarterback, maybe one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks of all time and one of the 2 or 3 best tight ends of all time. That helps. And he's got a fantastic staff. I've coached with a bunch of guys on that staff. He's got a great coaching staff. He turns the defense over to Steve Spagnuolo, but Andy's just a fun guy to be around, and it shows with the way his team plays for him.
An all-timer, no question. Just think about this, Coach Koetter. In a few years, I'm going to ask you what it feels like for you to have seen Andy Reid pass Don Shula in wins. Like, are you kidding me? You two hanging out at San Francisco State University, coaching the offense, and Andy Reid's, if he stays in the game 5 more years, there's a good chance he's going to pass Don Shula in wins.
That is crazy. That is really crazy. And I'll take that one step further. I was fortunate enough also to work with Mike Shula when I was in Jacksonville, and now my son Davis just this week took a job working for Mike Shula as the assistant quarterback coach at South Carolina. So, and the fact that Andy's going to pass Don for the most wins in NFL history within the next couple of years, that's really cool for Andy. Very happy for him.
Absolutely. AFC Championship game. This is the second of the 2 in Buffalo. Here they are again, Coach Koetter. And I know your buddy Rob Boris, who you coached with in Jacksonville. He was your tight ends coach with Mercedes Lewis. He's now in Buffalo. They get a lot of activity from their tight ends as well. When you put the tape on or whatever, watch this Bills team. If Andy Reid was going to say, "Uh-oh, Dirk, what do I need to be afraid of?" What would you tell him?
Well, the Bills have 2 good edge rushers. I mean, they can get after you from the edge. I think Taylor Rapp, the safety they announced today, that Taylor Rapp, veteran safety for the Bills, is out. They're going to be starting a rookie in his place. I would expect this is going to be a high-scoring game, but I think both these quarterbacks are so good. Josh Allen having a fantastic year. If he's not the MVP, he's in the top 2 or 3 for sure. If you look, though, at all the numbers for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes playing at home, I mean, there's a million stats. Look them up. But their numbers when it's under 32 degrees, their numbers, 7 straight championship games, their win-loss record at home, I think he's something like 26-1 in games after the 1st of November at home. It's crazy how the numbers favor the Chiefs. But with that being said, man, the Bills on offense are rolling right now. They can run the ball with the running back position with Cook. They're running at the quarterback position. They're using the tight end. And then they got Boise State's own Shakir out there making plays and run after the catch. He even returned punts last week.
Yep.
I think this is going to be a great game. And man, I wouldn't be surprised if it went either way. I think it's just going to be right down to the end. The one underrated thing is Steve Spagnuolo, that D coordinator for the Chiefs. He has done a fantastic job of saving his all-out blitzes for key moments in the game. And then he's not afraid to bring the house and play zero coverage. And it's been working for him. It'll be interesting to see how the Bills handle that in the biggest moments.
All right, Dirk Koetter, this has been going on in sports for 100 years, so I need to ask you this question. Is there star treatment in the NFL? Does Patrick Mahomes capitalize on that? And inside, because on the outside of NFL circles, social media knuckleheads like me and Ballgame talk about it all the time. Do they talk about it inside the NFL circles?
I have really not heard talk about it, but I have to admit, a couple of those calls in that Chiefs game last week were a little on the sketchy side. But
I'm with you.
Yeah, it was a little. A couple of those calls were a little sketchy last week. But with that being said, no, they do not talk about it on the inside. Man, being an official in the NFL has got to be one of the toughest jobs out there, because you got the biggest, fastest, strongest dudes in the world going a million miles an hour, and those guys are right a lot more than they're wrong. They also got instant replay to back up everything nowadays. But yeah, I think they're definitely the people that were saying conspiracy theory on the Chiefs last week. There was something to that, but the Texans beat themselves, and hopefully this game is not decided by the officials, but it's decided on the field.
One more quick crazy question from me, because you said this all season long when we bugged you about whether you were coming back at Boise State, and you constantly said football coaching is a young man's game. Well, Pete Carroll kind of proved that wrong today at 73, although he's 53 in real life, I think. But your thoughts on Pete Carroll? Is that going to be a good story or a bad story in a couple of years?
Yeah, that's really an interesting one. Pete Carroll's his energy and his positivity are through the roof. 72 years old. One thing I thought that was interesting is they gave him a 3-year contract, where most of these guys are getting 5-year contracts when they come in the door. But let's face it, the Raiders are a mess. The Raiders are a mess. And if you look at the division they're in, the AFC West, they're sitting there with Harbaugh. They're sitting there with Andy Reid. They're sitting there with Sean Payton over in Denver. Old Mark Davis might have gotten this one right by bringing in a proven winner for sure, a guy that's done it at the highest level, a guy that's a builder, a culture builder, a positive guy. And I just don't know when you bring in a guy that's 72 years old, what's your long-term plan? But the Raiders have been such a mess lately. In the short term, over this next 3 years, I think it's probably a good move.
Pete, they're going to buy in for Pete, right? Coach Koetter, in your opinion?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the whole organization.
Absolutely.
The fans will buy in. The front office will buy in. The players will certainly buy in, and Pete's going to be running around chewing gum. I love it. Coach Koetter, before we get you out of here, we're going to bring you on next week. I think we're at the golf show, but and Dirk Koetter's opinion, who's playing in Super Bowl 59?
Ooh, oh, man, I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that. I was hoping you wouldn't ask me that. Well, I'm going to just, please don't take this as betting advice in any way. But I'm just going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to pick upsets on both sides, and I'm going to say it's Buffalo versus the Washington Commanders.
Love it, dude. A rematch of the 1991 Super Bowl, where Mark Rippon was the MVP. Buffalo, Washington. You can sign me up for that. Coach Koetter, enjoy the games this weekend, and thanks for letting us give $1,000 to the Horseshoe Collective on behalf of Timberstone.
Hey, thanks for Timberstone. Again, supporting that collective and supporting the Broncos and help keeping these best players at home is the best thing we can do. I just looked at a thing today showing that from 2000 to 2024, Boise State has the third most wins in college football. And one of the reasons for that is we keep the best players at home. The collective helps us do that. Timberstone, thank you.
Great stuff. There's Dirk Koetter. There's our playoff correspondent, Prater. There's another grand from Timberstone to the Horseshoe Collective. Now we ask you, 208-424-9300 on a Friday. Your last chance to talk to us before we come back and say Super Bowl 59. Here's what we have. What are you watching for this weekend? Who do you think is going to play and why in Super Bowl 59? And Prater, if there's anything else they want to get in, if you want to talk about Leon Rice in this basketball team, again, Friday, 5:25, this is your segment, 208-424-9300. JP, let's have some fun.
From the Beacon Plumbing Traffic Studios, this is Ticket Traffic.